This short video will show how to use the new irregular buttons within StarDraw Control. I've already created a sample project here which has got some interesting graphic buttons on it, and the only thing special about them is they have irregular shaped transparent PNGs as their default pressed and hover images, which we can see here. If I just click on here, you can see their default disabled and hover images here and pressed images, and you can see that the graphic control itself is made up of a rectangle with an image within it. Now the current hit test logic checks to see if the mouse is within the rectangle of the graphic button, but as you can see, the actual image of the graphic button is not rectangular at all. The same with all these shapes here. And so I could click where the cursor is right now and it would select that button. Let's actually see that in action so we can see the current limitations of the software. You see here it's selected this button, fine when I'm on it, but if I'm off of it, even here, even here, even here, it still thinks it's on the button. That's because it's looking at the rectangular boundaries of that graphic button. And if you can imagine, if you actually shifted these closer together so they combined a more complex shape, we would start getting problems with the hit detection of, if it's here, does it click the middle one? Or when you bring this forward over here, does it click this one? So let's actually see what that does. Let's try moving this closer in. So it nudges up just right. There we go, that'll do. Now if we go and have a look to see how that behaves, you can see here that's fine, but as we move closer to it, it hasn't selected the center button because we're still within the rectangle of this control. We have to move all the way outside the rectangle in order for it to select on the center one. And this can cause all kinds of problems. However, we have a new property for graphic buttons called click-through, in which it will change the behavior of the hit test of the graphic button to only click when you actually click on a non-transparent part of the object. And as PNGs can have a separate alpha channel, it has to be 100% transparent for it not to click on it, as most of that control is. But you could have like a shaded area or blurred area, or drop shadow around the PNG, and if you clicked on that shadow part, you would still go and select that control. But as these are pretty well defined, they don't have too much of a shadow. It should be obvious what we're doing here. We'll just set the click through for that one to be true and the click through for this one to be true. Now if we run it, we'll see a different behavior. So again, if I move my mouse over here, notice to begin with that even though we're within the rectangle of that graphic button, it hasn't selected it, it hasn't hovered over it. I have to go all the way over to the very edge, and there we go, now it's selected it. And the same again down here. If I move just off of it by a pixel, it's not selected anymore, and the same up here. And we'll see that as we move into that area, so we can see the hit test detection logic works great by actually using the contents of the PNG file to determine whether it's within that button or not for the hit test. So we could easily go and make these just by moving them in a bit. Let's bring that one up to there, and we'll bring this one down to here, maybe a bit more, and this one in over to here, and we'll bring this one over to here. You can see we've got a bit of distortion on the graphics, which will all be fixed when we go to redraw the control, which I'll just do in a second. So So if I switch to say the topology view and back again to this, we'll see that's pretty close. We'll probably want to bring this one down a bit. That looks fine. There we go. Okay, so we've got a fairly complicated control, and you can spend ages getting this just right. There we go. So now, and I'll select all the controls and force the click-through value to be true. Now we should see a very well-behaved, complicated, irregular set of buttons. And as I move between each area, the hit test detection is absolutely spot on, thanks to that new click-through control. In fact, if I move just outside all the way around the edges, you can see the hit test detection is spot on. Great. Now, if we have a look at an even more complicated scenario of, say, an architectural floor plan, we can see that there are a whole bunch of areas that are set up as graphic buttons. For example, on this, now let me pick this one. This is actually a graphic button. If I turn off the locked, if I move this around, you'll see that this graphic button is actually made up of, might be clear if I move it over to here, some areas here and some areas down here as well, which correlate to here and here. And we have hovered and press states for each of those as well. So this graphic button is actually spread over and is disjoint. We have other graphic buttons here. Again, I'll turn the locked off so we can see how that button looks like. And you can see it's that side and that side. We also have another graphic button over here. So it's a very complicated, and these are the blue parts. Because we've got a blue bit up here and a blue bit there which relates to here and here. And we've even got another graphic button for this very unusual shape round here. So I'm just going to discard all of that, and having moved it all around and messed with it, I'll just open it up again. I think the easiest example is if I just run it, and then you can see how it works. Now this is designed for 1024 768. So it will come up full screen within this video. And we can see here that when we click on this part of that image, it's clicked on the right graphic button and it's toggled it to be the pressed state, which is a different colored PNG of the same area. And if I go and click on this area down here, it's of a completely different shape. And even more complicated is this one here, which is a bit of this one over here, and this thin corridor down here. And again, I can turn these off individually. And we've even got one over here and one there, which updates both sides. So this is actually one graphic button, but because of the click-through property, you're allowed to overlay the graphic buttons on top of each other, irrelevant of their ordering, and then be able to click on it based on the transparency of the pixel of the graphic button that you're clicking on. So just to be clear, there's a graphic button going all the way across here and back again. There's another graphic button that actually extends all the way down to here for the total rectangle of this area. So there's a lot of overlapping rectangles. And when I click on here, it hasn't selected this graphic button here that's going around it, because that pixel that I clicked on is transparent on this graphic button, but not on this one. So we've clicked through to the button behind it. Now you can have any shape graphic button and click on any part of it. It will treat it as one button, and you can have multiple buttons laid on top of each other to produce some very visually exciting and intuitive interfaces to control your system. Thank you very much.